Last time we talked about applying basic joints in Autodesk Fusion 360. In this video I want to talk about restricting the motion of those joints and driving them. Now this applies to all joints except rigid, which of course cannot be changed. So I'm going to set up a revolve joint between this edge and this edge on an angle and say OK. Now at this point I have very little control of the angle itself, but I can rotate it. First way to limit the motion or set a motion is to go into and right click and say drive joints. This allows you to set up the actual joint that you want. In this case -90. Remember though that if I don't lock it, it still can be changed. Of course, if I lock it, I cannot. Let's take the lock off and do the next method. The next one is either touch the little icon at the end or hit Edit Joint Limits. Pick on minimum and maximum. Now, I want the minimum to be -180. That's straight up. The reason I put -180 first and then -90 second is because this is a smaller value than the maximum. I can animate to check my settings. The flip button makes it go around the other way, which is not really useful in this case. Say OK, and now I have restrictions from -180 to -90. Of course, nothing between. Let's go a step further. Edit Joint Limits and pick on Rest. Now this is where after you move it, it will go back to rest. It's kind of like a spring action. I want to go between -180, -90, and then I want to rest at -90. Say OK. So there's -180, and when I let go, it goes back to -90. I could change this if I like to go at 45 degrees, which would be a -135. So now you see it stops a rest of -135. Now we're going to switch to another model and show you the use of animate joint and animate assembly, or animate model, excuse me. So I have a bunch of joints in here and one is labeled drive me. So I'm going to go down to animate joint first. This animates the only joint, one joint, and that is the joint that I applied to the rotary cylinder, without regards to other joints in the model. Hit escape to end. Now if I go to animate model, it drives all the joints in relation to that rotary motion. This is much better for driving models than motion study. Let's go up to motion study for a number of reasons. I'm going to pick on that drive me as the one I want to drive, and I'm going to pick at the end of it, and I'm going to set the value I want it to be, oh, let's say 720 at 100. Now when I drive this, I can only get one speed. I can make it repetitive and it will revolve it, but it's not really very control to it. You can't slow it down. You can go back, you can make it go one way, but there's a bad thing about motion studies is that it is only temporary. So if I say OK and then save it or even go back to it, that motion study disappears. That's why animating a model is much better for driving your models. Now let's look at another aspect of driving. There's the rim. If I drive that, animate the model, it turns by itself. Why? Because there's no constraint between it and the flywheel. But if I drive the model, it goes with it because nothing's holding it up. Now the best way to cure this problem is to make a rigid group. Pick on the two components and make a rigid group. I'm going to unsuppress this one, and as you can see now, it will automatically drive the model if I drag it. If I suppress it, it will not. It'll spin freely. So rigid groups play a real important role in motion. Thank you.